Okay, Rich Van Tassel here. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. We're giving you your weekly NBA report. Starting in the Eastern Conference, the Cavaliers have now won two straight, following those two previous losses they had. One was a tough one to the Boston Celtics on a game-winning buzzer beater. They're now 7-3 in their last 10 and 7-3 under Tyronn Lue. Top of the conference at 37-14 with a two-game lead over the Toronto Raptors, who are 35-16. The Raptors followed up their big winning streak after a loss, or after it was snapped with a loss. They've now won three straight, 9-1 in their last 10. As well, the Boston Celtics are in third in the conference. They are 31-22. They are 9-1 in their last 10 on a four-game winning streak. So those are the only three teams in that conference, the top three teams that have 30 wins. Or excuse me, the Atlanta Hawks do. They are number five though. They're 30-24. They've now lost two straight. And Miami has actually slipped into the fourth spot at 29-23. Have lost their last game. It was on Sunday, nationally televised game against the Clippers. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Moving down the conference, you look at the Chicago Bulls, who are now 27-24, losers of three straight. They've had their win streaks. They've had their losing streaks this year. A lot of injuries. Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler now hurt. We'll see what happens with those two guys, how long it's going to be. It looked a lot worse for Jimmy Butler than it appears. There's even talk of him playing in the All-Star game, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem. But the All-Star break cannot come soon enough for the Chicago Bulls. Indiana is off two straight wins. They are up to sixth in the conference, 28-24. The Detroit Pistons currently hold the eighth spot at 27-26, but they've lost two straight. The Charlotte Hornets have won two straight. Um, they are at 500 at 26-26, so only a half game out of the last spot for the playoffs. The Magic, who got off to a nice start early in the season, have now won two straight. They come in three games out of the last spot for the playoffs. They've beaten the Atlanta Hawks now on a home and home. One was a buzzer beater last night. They were getting beat pretty bad early and came back to win by 7 in overtime. So hats off to the Orlando Magic. Let's see if they've gotten over that rough spot and they can go into the All-Star break with some momentum and can come out of it playing very well. That should be effective for them and possibly a playoff run. Washington continues to struggle there at 22-27. Who knows if this team will even make the playoffs? Certainly, they are not going to be going to the conference finals like I projected them to. I wonder how much of the difference Paul Pierce missing is, but this team has just not found it all year. I don't expect Randy Whitman to survive the end of the season. Will he make it to the end of the season? That's one thing, but he will almost certainly not be the coach next year. After that, the Washington Wizards, who are 14 games away from the top spot, or three games out. You start getting into the teams that probably have no shot of making the playoffs. The New York Knicks at 23-31. They're only 4.5 out of the last playoff spot. Will a new coach invigorate them enough to go on a run? Carmelo Anthony, if he's healthy coming out of the All-Star break, certainly there's potential there, but they've got to snap this losing streak they've had, and they've got to do it right away if they want to have any hope. Milwaukee Bucks 20-32. They've now lost five straight games. Who knows what is going wrong with Milwaukee? There's some reports that they are looking to trade some of their guys this year. Even Greg Monroe, who was the big free agent signing for them, they're going to trade him. It's a real shame. You know, the season got away from them, but I still think this team is in the right direction, and I don't ever like when teams just blow things up like that after things get away from them. But that's what they do in the NBA, and especially a small market team like Milwaukee. It's not going to surprise me. Then you have the Brooklyn Nets, 14-39, are off a win last night. Philadelphia continues to struggle. They were beating the Los Angeles Clippers early yesterday, but they lost by 6 in overtime. There were a few overtime games yesterday. That was the second of what looks like to be three. Yes. All right, now moving into the Western Conference, Golden State 46-4 through their first 50, very impressive. They're on a 9-game winning streak, 9-1 in their last 10, obviously. San Antonio 43-8, 3.5 games out. Unlikely that they're going to be able to catch Golden State at this point. They've played one more game, and Golden State is just playing too hot. You say that, you look at the Spurs, who are 43-8, and you're like, aren't playing hot enough. No, they're playing plenty hot. Golden State is just an all-time team. Let's still see if they can get to that at least 70 wins. To get to 70 wins, they would have to go 24-8. Um, I would expect it to break the record of the Bulls, the 95-96 Bulls. I went 72-10. They would have to go 27-5 the rest of the way. Certainly possible that because they don't even have 5 wins yet, and they would have to get 19, almost 20 less losses. But just look at that. You know how difficult it is to go 27-5, and they still have to do that just to break the record. So it should put it into perspective what they're doing and how impressive what Golden State is doing, and how impressive what Golden State did, or excuse me, what Chicago did to set the record. Oklahoma City continues to fly under the radar, 8-2 in their last 10, 39-14. They are off a win last night against the Phoenix Suns. Let's see what they can do going into the All-Star break. Can they get to 40 wins? I would assume they have at least one more game. Los Angeles Clippers 35-17. They followed up their recent little stumble there after a lot of wins with 3 straight wins. They are looking very good without Blake Griffin. Is Blake Griffin going to be traded? I doubt it. We'll see what they do, though, when he comes back, how they're going to incorporate him into the lineup and move forward from there. Memphis Grizzlies have lost 2 straight, 2 tough ones, one last night to the Portland Trailblazers in overtime. We'll get into the Trailblazers in just a little bit. They had another one to the Dallas Mavericks. So they are falling off a little bit. They were very hot to get themselves to 10 games over 500. And certainly they're going to regroup in the All-Star break. A lot of time off, more than usual with the All-Star game. And let's see if they can make a serious push in the second half of the season to climb up the rankings. They're now 5 games behind the Los Angeles Clippers in what looks like the matchup of the first round between those two 4 and 5 teams. So they would have to catch the Clippers to be able to have home court advantage. Dallas has been sputtering a bit. They are now in the negative for their differential this season, just under minus 1 point per game. I'm a little surprised. Dallas has struggled a bit of late. They're not going to trade any of their players, but if there was ever a team that would want to do it, it would be the Mavericks. So I think that them being competitive this year would almost be detrimental to them in the long run. With that being said, I always prefer teams play it out and you try to win the season. We just discussed with Milwaukee, I never like seeing guys get traded, even when your team's losing, because you can just turn around the next year, but especially when a team is competitive. But this is going to be interesting to see what happens with the Dallas Mavericks the rest of the way. Houston just 1 game above 500, 27-26. They certainly are potential to trade some of their guys. They have just not found any traction. Let's see if they can get a win going into the All-Star break, some good momentum, and then come out of that and try to make their big-time run. Because this team, again, I predicted them to win the championship. They are way too good to be where they are. The Utah Jazz have been able to win 6 straight to get to 25-25. They're 500. They hold the last playoff spot. Portland is at 26-27. They are 8-2 in their last 10. They are only a half game out, obviously, of the last spot. And both teams are in the plus for their differentials. Plus 1.5 points for the Jazz, plus 0.3 point for the Trailblazers. The Sacramento Kings are plummeting. Losers of 4 straight, 2-8 in their last 10. They're 21-31. 5 games out of the the last playoff spot. And this team has talked about they're going to fire George Karl in the coming days. I don't know what they're waiting for, why you wouldn't just fire him if you're going to fire him. It doesn't seem to make much sense, especially you're only 5 games out. You have the All-Star break coming up. There's a potential you could still make the playoffs, but you got to turn things around very fast, and it's just not clicking with George Karl. And it doesn't do George Karl any favors either. There's no way that this team's going to play to perform knowing that George Karl is going to be on. So if you're going to fire him, just fire him and get it over with. We'll probably go into that more when it happens. Nuggets 21-32, 5.5 games out. Really, the last team that has any chance of making the playoffs outside of the race right now would be the Nuggets, and I don't even expect that. New Orleans Pelicans, they're 6.5 out. Really struggling this year, 19-32. Can they get to 20 wins before the All-Star break? Certainly possible. If this team wants to have any hope of making the playoffs, they'd have to get to 25 wins before they get to 35 losses. And at least 32 or 33 wins before they get to 40 losses. And I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. Not the year for the Pelicans. Minnesota is in free fall, 16-37, as well as the Phoenix Suns. And the Los Angeles Lakers, 11-43. Lakers almost certainly going to lose 60 games. Let's see if they can avoid 65. All right, your power rankings. One, obviously the Golden State Warriors. Two, San Antonio Spurs. Those guys have been the top two most of the year. Three, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Four, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And five, the Los Angeles Clippers. Teams like the Celtics and Raptors have been playing well. They're hot, but I gotta leave Boston out, especially just because the record is they have four less losses than anyone in the top five. Toronto could be there, but I'm gonna give it to the Los Angeles Clippers because I still think at the top, the West is still a little better than the East. Overall, the East is much improved and probably the better conference, but at the top is where the West is better, so I'm going to give it to the Los Angeles Clippers. So there you have it. Your power rankings are the Golden State Warriors 1, San Antonio Spurs 2, Oklahoma City Thunder 3, Cleveland Cavaliers 4, and the Los Angeles Clippers 5. All right, that's your weekly NBA report for Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. Remember, we really appreciate any subscriptions anyone could give, and we will see with any flash news alerts, and we'll be on the radio Friday. Hopefully there won't be any problems with the weather. That's 90.5 HD3. And enjoy the All-Star break. The news will probably be slow in the meantime because we have the All-Star break coming up, but be sure to enjoy that, and of course anything that comes across the wire will let you know. Thank you all so much. Okay, Rich Van Tassel here. Today is Tuesday, February 9th.